Hey, Sharam Namdarian here. The YouTube algorithm now allows me to talk about sex. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how to have better sex, how to have more sex through emotional healing. And guess what? This video I'm also going to be sharing to Facebook and Instagram. So if it gets throttled on those platforms, whoop-de-doo, at least on maybe YouTube, it'll get somewhere. So in this channel, in my work, in my life, I talk a lot about the concept of emotional healing. Now, if you are new to this channel, if you're new to my work, catch up. I have an online course called Introduction to Surrender. It's in the description. That'll help you catch up. But the general gist is this, is that most of the time, the core of any healing process is deep, deep emotional surrender, which is the act of feeling your emotions without trying to change it or modify it. In the hardest times, in the most challenging of times, that's what most people are forced to do. And I say most people because sometimes it's like that's what happens, but we don't necessarily realize it. It's the God particle of healing is emotional surrender. Now, when we heal, we ultimately allow the cycle to complete itself. That is, that the thing that we have been avoiding finally gets to be felt and we get to move on with our life. So when we're talking about having greater sex, having greater intimacy, having more sex, for example, all of this is still involved. So we're going to be talking about actually creating a healed sex life with your partner, and if you're single, with whoever the fuck you want it to be. Because truth be told, this is one of my passions. It's understanding the relationship between intimacy and healing. And I've been gunning and I've been wanting to talk about this on the channel for a very long time. So thank you, YouTube, for now changing your system and being more applicable to edgier topics. So, in the past, I've talked a lot about the idea of the funnel or the tube or the pipe. The pipe is a very tantric concept, but I feel like it really is, like when you heal more, you'll actually feel it. You're almost feeling like the pipe of your existence is clear. And when you're clear, as you heal your blocks towards creating whatever it is the fuck that you want to create, what ends up happening is that it feels very clear. You know, people talk about the flow state. If you don't know what the flow state is, flow state generally being, you know, in a state of flow, not necessarily thinking, just sort of acting. So being in a state of flow is very similar to what it feels like to be healed. It's just that you are doing, you are not necessarily thinking, but if there is thought, it's a very deep awareness. It's that you are no longer blocked or having issues. So that's the pipe of yourself. When it comes to connecting with someone else, for example, you often have a pipe with them. Now, this is the basis of the online course that I'm about to create called Healing the Blocks to Love. But the general gist is this, is that often the things that you're feeling towards them are sometimes, and I say sometimes, the very thing that they are feeling towards you. For example, if you're like, they're not listening to me, well, fuck, are you listening to them? You might find that the very thing that they're feeling towards you is you're feeling towards them, not all the time. But the things that you feel towards your partner and creating more intimacy and things like that as a one-way street. Like we're going to talk about this one way, then we're going to talk about this two-way streets. But as a one-way street are the blockages that you have towards creating more intimacy with your partner, or if you're single, whoever the fuck that is. For example, we're going to talk about first in partners, and then we're going to talk about in if you're single. So if you're with a partner, for example, do you feel rejected? Do you have an incomplete cycle of rejection to go through? For example, if you are connecting with your partner and you are instigating a sexual encounter with your partner and they say no, how does that feel? Sometimes we can get caught up in that feeling. We can get caught up in that rejection. So in that case, I'd ask you to surrender. When you surrender to that feeling, you let it pass, suddenly rejection ain't not a thing. It doesn't matter because it is okay if they say yes to you. It's okay if they say no. It does not hurt you because your pipe and your connected pipe is also very clear. It might be, for example, that you then, through healing, recognize that you've been trying to create certain conditions. For example, in my own life, I recognized that I felt like I had to earn sex. So if my partner was coming to me and being like, hey, let's get some, in my words, let's get busy, I'd often in the past, I'd reject it because I was like, no, but I haven't worked enough for this. So I'd put it in a situation where I would work more. Through surrender, through deep surrender, I realized that's what I'm doing. I'm actually blocking it because there was a blockage in our collective pipe. That was my blockage that I put it there, and that would affect the flow. So I was trying to like manipulate the situation just so I'd feel comfortable with it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we're talking about creating higher healed intimacy. So that's much more powerful, much more passionate, much more loving, much more easier intimacy between you and your partner. Now, if you are single, it might be that a blockage might be that you feel like, oh, no one wants to talk to me, or that you're ugly. It's like, that's just fucking, that's in here and that's in here. People might be genuinely ugly, but I've talked about this in the past. You can be attractive, but also be repulsive simultaneously. So attractiveness generally tends to be an energy that's cultivated within you. It doesn't necessarily, it's like your physical appearance will reflect that inner state. And that's, again, it's one of those little nuanced statements that's not all the time. A lot of the stuff that I say, not all the time. It's like, it's nuanced. If you take it as gospel, it's like Jesus. Just like experience it for yourself. Surrender is something you can do now, powerfully. You don't have to pay anything for it. You've already learned it. You've watched this video. You've probably watched 100 videos. You don't have to pay. You just got to learn it. That's my foundation of teaching emotional healing, is I want people to know it is free. You know, I had to figure it out for when I was in my most depressive state. Sure, hiring me might cost money. That's fine. You know, you're allowed to charge for things. But the core of emotional healing should and will always be free. That is feeling, you know? No one can ever charge you to feel something. They might, like maybe movies, you know, like wanna feel what it feels like to be in the movies, but feeling your own emotions will always be free. It might mean that you feel like you need to talk to new people. It's like, say you're single, right? And you're like, well, I'm not meeting anyone. It's like, bullshit. You're meeting people everywhere. Sure, you're in lockdown, there's online, it's fine, but we're often blocked to seeing where we're meeting people. So you might have to surrender to those feelings, realizing that it's okay to not meet people, just as okay to meet people. And what I find is when most people heal, they start to realize where they're already doing it. So that might mean that you might realize where you're already meeting people. With your partner, if you're in a relationship, you might realize where you're already attractive, or that your partner wants to engage with you. This sort of stuff it's like, say you got a collective pipe. It's like you put stuff in that pipe just as much as they put stuff in that pipe. And when you heal that, you're actually showing your body how to heal it again and again and again and again and again. So you're, for all intents and purposes, done. Now, I've done with couples, I've done this thing where I get them to look at each other and I ask them to surrender to the feelings that come up. Pretty soon, every single fucking time, it's like I'm watching the most beautiful romance movie I've ever seen. Every single fucking time. It's like their connection, their intimacy, because they start to process their blocks and their relationship just elevates without me or them trying. That's one of my core messages for you jerks, is that most of the time we try fucking too hard, especially in our relationships and especially just in our life as a whole. We try too hard because we are blocked and we are essentially trying to force more energy by circumventing those blocks. Things in life should be easy, they can be easy, and sure, they are fucking tough and terrible, and shit fucking happens, and worlds end, and countries crumble, and viruses exist. But in your day-to-day life, healing is the act of completely revolutionizing your life, but you start small. You start with the little tiny things that you'd completely forgotten. One of my favorite things is when I talk to anyone, because this is one of my favorite topics, when I talk to anyone about their healing journey, they share with me such amazing realizations, and every single fucking time, they always share a similar sentence where it's like, I didn't even know I was thinking this. I didn't even know I was thinking this. So back to the main topic of how to get better and more sex through healing. Honestly, like one of the things I want to share even in my own life, I probably shared this thing before with my partner. You know, I'd be like, hey, hey, and sometimes she'd say no. And I realized through my healing of my own rejection, every time I did that, I felt rejection. Once I cleared that pipe, that I'd healed that cycle, I thus realized that, hey, wait a second, like she's not saying no to me. It's actually too good. It's too much. I'm asking too much right now. She's got other things on her mind, and I need to respect that. And I said that to her, and she was like, yes, that's exactly what. And the thing is, most of the time, the answer is usually there. Like, the answer is there, especially in relationships. People communicate all the fucking time. When I work with people healing relationships, they're like, at the end of it, they're like, I can't believe I didn't see that at the start. That they were telling me that they didn't want to be in a relationship with me, yet I tried so hard. Because why? We have incomplete cycles that through life we're attempting to complete them. It's very simple. It's so simple that most people fucking miss it. And honestly, this path, you literally can go through and surrender and surrender and surrender and surrender and surrender. And in some places, people might have to realize that they have to actually go off and do something else before they come back to relationships. That's fine. But you surrender and you surrender, surrender everything. Every feeling or thought you have about intimacy, about sexual relationships, about if you're in a relationship, what your partner might think, what you might think, all of this stuff. If you're single, what they, this mysterious they might think, to create a better acumen. Fuck it. If you're on Tinder or Bumble or whatever these fucking apps are, what do you feel? Oh, my bio isn't good enough. Fuck it. Your bio's gonna be shit. Own it. If they don't like you, do they really like you? You know, if you're creating a false sense of self just so someone might like you, is that really how you want to be liked? Oh, but what I say is bad. Feel it in the moment. As you're messaging someone new, surrender. You might cringe, you might feel so embarrassed putting yourself out there. But embarrassment is a part of life. Minimizing embarrassment is minimizing pain. So there is obviously so much I can talk about this. And that's why I'm producing an online course called Healing the Blocks to Love, where you can go on my website, listen to me, yell at you for around 2.5 hours, where I share with you deep impacts about relationships, about healing these blocks, about surrendering, while also simultaneously inviting you to surrender. I'm facilitating it with you rather than just yelling it at you through the power of audio, where you can actually start to process some of the major key blockages that I find when it comes to relationships. And that'll be available probably in the next 2 weeks. I'm recording it this weekend. I've been doing a lot of planning around it. So I hope you get in on it. And if you haven't already got access to it, Introduction to Surrender, links are in the description anyway. That brings you a crash course that'll bring you up to speed of understanding much more in depth than I can ever in these videos. Sure, you can watch 1,000 of these videos, but the audio in depth for 2.5 hours that I bring you in this Introduction to Surrender online course, much more powerful, much more succinct, and you will, because